Today is part 3 of this 14-part series on things that quietly break retirement plans. In the first video, we talked about bad timing early in retirement. Now, in the second video, we talked about income timing. And so in this video, we're going to talk about why having money is not always the same as having money show up when you need it. So here is something that gets missed a lot. It is when a retirement plan relies too much on what the market is doing. It is when a retirement plan relies too much on what the market is doing, what we hope it does. And I want to be clear right away. This does not mean the market is bad, but it does not mean also investing is bad. Let's redo that. And I want to be clear right away. This does not mean the market is bad. It also does not mean that investing is bad. It means that we have to be honest about what the market can and cannot do for a retirement plan. A lot of people will look at a retirement plan and say, if I can earn, 6 or 7%, I should be fine. And on paper, that may be possibly true. But here's the problem. You do not actually get 6 or 7% in a straight line every year. This is not how markets work. One year you might be up 12%. Another year you could be possibly down 8%. Another year you could possibly be flat. Here's the definition for you. Market volatility. And market volatility means the normal ups and downs of investment values. And so volatility is not automatically bad. It's a part of investing. The issue is what happens when your plan needs the market to be smooth. And the market typically is not very smooth. So that is where people can start to feel the pressure. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone retires with $1 million, right? They need to pull out $50,000 a year to help cover their life, and their plan assumes that they average, 6% over a period of time. It sounds pretty reasonable, right? But here's where things come in. Let's say the first few years are a little bit rough for them. Year 1, the account drops 10%. It's a bad market year. Then the following year, it's pretty flat. Nothing happens in the market. Year 3, it grows a little, but it's not a lot to make up for the losses of the previous years. Now this person is not just watching the account move, they're also taking money out. They have other bills to pay. They need groceries. They still need to pay insurance. They still have property taxes. And they still really just want to live their life without any worries. So, even when the market is down, they may still need income. That is the part that really changes, I think, a lot of things with folks. And so when you are working, a down market can feel uncomfortable, but when you're retired and pulling that income, a down market makes you feel like the world is ending and can feel extremely personal. Because now that account is not just a number. It is your paycheck, is what you need for your day-to-day. And if that paycheck depends too much on selling investments during a bad time, it can be extremely overwhelming for folks. And so we need to make sure that we can test that. And being able to test that can mean a lot of things. One meaning is that withdrawal. And withdrawal means money taken out account for spending. Withdrawal could come on from an IRA. It could come from a 401k. It could come from a regular investment account. But the problem is when investments are down, withdrawals feel different. You probably will have to sell more shares to get the same amount of cash that you would have needed. So we got to keep things a little bit simple on the math side. Say you need, $5,000, right? If your investments are doing well, selling a smaller amount may get you there, right? The problem is that if the account is down, you'll have to sell more just to get that $5,000. So when you do sell those shares, they are gone. They do not get to recover later. And that is a big point that early retirement can feel more fragile than most people would like to expect. So another definition for you, sequence of returns risk. And sequence of returns risk means poor returns early in retirement can overall hurt the long-term plan. And that name sounds a little bit more complicated than the idea. It just means the order of returns matters. Bad returns early in retirement can hurt more than bad returns later. Not because the market ever recovers, but because you're taking money out while you're waiting for that recovery. Let me put it to you in a good way. Two people can get the same average of return over 20 years, right? But if one person gets the bad years early on and the other gets the bad years later, their retirement experience will be completely different from each other. But overall, it's the same average. The problem is it was in different order. 3 bad years in the beginning, 3 bad years at the end is a completely different outcome. That's why I'm extremely careful when people say, the market averages this over time, right? Well, yeah, that may be true, but retirement is not lived over one average. Your life isn't based on averages. It's lived year by year. Things change, things happen. And honestly, it's even month to month. The answer is just not, well, you know what? This is too much for me. Let's just avoid the market. It's not realistic. A lot of people need growth. Ultimately, most folks need the money for them to keep working for them. They may have a retirement that lasts, could be 20, 30, 40 years, 50 years. And so that growth matters. It means investments increasing in value over time. And growth can be very important in retirement. It only becomes, I would say, a problem when it's the only solution. And if that plan is basically, I hope the market does well enough every year, well, I don't want to say it, but that's not really a plan, right? That's just pure hope and skepticism. And hope isn't bad, though, and being skeptic isn't bad, but the hope and skepticism need structure around it. Now, when it comes to assumptions, every plan needs a belief on where you want things to go. Think of 529 contributing to retirement. Well, every plan uses those assumptions. We need to assume some return in our portfolios. We also need to assume some inflation in our portfolios. We also need to assume spending, taxes, which is completely normal. The main question is, what happens if those assumptions are wrong? What happens if returns are lower for a few years or even more? What happens if inflation's higher than reported? What happens if spending is more than you thought that year? Maybe you spent too much more on vacations. And you need a plan to be able to answer those questions for you. You cannot be doing these things on willy-nilly. And a lot of folks, I get questions on, well, what is inflation? And that means the cost of goods goes up over time. Groceries do go up, insurance will go up over time, and taxes have the possibility of going up as well. Over time, I don't think taxes have gone down for most folks. They typically have increased. Healthcare can also go up. And with those costs rise, while the market is having a rough stretch, it could really squeeze what you've built up over your life from both angles. Your money's going out in one direction, costs are going up, and now the portfolio may not be growing in the way that you hoped, right? Now you're feeling way too pinched. So the thought process of relying too much on the market can easily create stress. Not at all at once, not always dramatically, but slowly. It can show up in those small decisions that you make. And maybe someone stops spending on things they actually planned for. Maybe, they start checking on their account a little bit too often. Maybe they delay those trips that they've been planning with the spouse. Maybe they can be afraid to take money out, or simply change investments at the wrong time because they feel nervous. Another definition here for you as well, behavior risk. And that means making emotional decisions during these times of uncertainty, and how this relates to retirement planning has to be more than just having those projections. A projection can be helpful, but a projection does not tell you how you should feel and will feel during a bad year. It does not tell you whether you'll stick with the plan. It does not tell you whether your income feels steady enough to sleep at night. So the better question is not just, what return do I need? A more simple thought should be, how much does this plan depend on everything going right? It's a very different perspective. And if everything has to go right, the plan might look pretty good for you, but it could feel fragile. And a stronger plan has to have room for things to go wrong. It has to be flexible. You never know when things may happen, because Lord knows everything can go wrong only if it happens. So think about this. You need flexibility, and that means having the ability to adjust when life or market changes. So flexibility means that the plan can adjust. Maybe spending can move a little, maybe up or down, depending on how things go. Maybe income can come from different places. Think of different accounts. Maybe there's even just a simple cash reserve that you may have. And maybe there are investments that you can set aside that are not meant to chase growth. Another word for you, and that is buffer. And that means extra resources set aside to handle those uncertain moments. And a buffer is simply that extra room. It could be cash. It could be more stable investments. It might be lower fixed expenses. It might even be the ability to delay a big purchase. The buffer is not meant to be perfect. It's there to help you avoid being forced to make irrational decisions, rushing into something that you should never have done. And if you normally do that, this is where you see a lot of problems happen in society with your coworker at work making that rash choice. So if that market is down and you are forced to sell, it can feel very different than choosing to sell because it fits the plan. And so if spending is high and you have no room to adjust, right? That feels different than knowing which expenses can flex. And if your income is tight and there's just no backup, your stress can just simply go up. That is why I keep coming back to this idea. A good retirement plan should not require perfect conditions. It should be built for real life applications, not just averages, not just numbers on a spreadsheet. It has to come up with even just real bills, real emotional value. What is important to you, even in those real uncertain moments? Overall, the market is a useful tool, but it should not be the only thing holding the plan together. If the plan only works when the market cooperates, then the plan may need more structure, not more flexibility. Just more structure around it. Not more complexity, just more structure. A simple way to approach this. You may want some money for now, some money for some things that come up 3-6 months down the road, so think of soon, and some money for later, maybe a year or more. That money for now should feel pretty stable, should never be on top of mind for you. And the money for soon should be pretty thoughtful. It should be more than a minute of a thought process. And the money for later usually takes on more risk because it just simply has more time for any corrections, uncertain to be thought out, and plans to be put in place. That kind of structure can help people avoid treating their entire portfolio just like a one big pile of money that's sitting in there like Scrooge McDuck. And when everything feels like that one big pile, even the market drop feels like the whole thing is just in catastrophe. But each part does have its job, and it's easier to stay calm. The income part has a job. The growth has a job. And the buffer has a job. And when each part has that job, the plan starts to feel more understandable. That is the goal. This isn't to make retirement sound more complicated. It's to make it easier to understand on a fundamental basis. A retirement plan could look strong on paper and still rely too much on the market going right. The goal is to not avoid investing. The goal is to make sure the plan can still function when the market has a rough stretch. Because typically most folks operate on rough sketches, and those are normal. They are not a surprise. I've never known anybody that runs on a rough sketch gets surprised at anything. They're just simply part of the deal. The question is whether your plan has room for them. Thanks for taking this time with me, guys. And this was part 3 of the 14-part series on things that quietly break retirement plans. If this was helpful for you, drop a comment and subscribe, and let me know what stood out to you. If there's a retirement topic you want covered, put that in the comments too. I'd love to make a video on it and to help address issues within the community.